Hey everyone, you're interested in a career in banking in India and you've written in and said, please help us with that exam. So, on this episode, we have Prasan Kamat, who's the Director of Operations for Career Launcher in Mumbai. He's had about 17 years of experience in the education industry and he takes care of coaching for the government and banking sector jobs in Career Launcher Mumbai. So, let me quickly introduce you to Prasan. Hey Prasan, thank you so much for being here with us.
Thank you for calling me up.
And it's such a pleasure because they've been writing in and they all want to know about these banking
Sure.
exams and all of that.
It's a very hot thing now.
So quickly tell me, this is IBPS.
IBPS is a body that conducts exam for about 24 nationalized banks of India. Right. It's a common exam that is conducted for all the 24 banks for the recruitment. So IBPS basically stands for Institute for Banking Personal Selection. And they conduct 4 exams, as I said, in a year, right? So they have an exam for the probationary officers, they have an exam for the clerical positions, they have an exam for the specialist officers, which I'll explain, and then they have an exam for the regional rural banking, which is the Grameen banks of India. So these are the 4 core exams which IBPS conducts in a year. PO exam happens somewhere in the month of October, right? A couple of months down the line, in December, you would expect the clerical exams. The SO is something which doesn't have a very clear pattern to it, right? So the biggest 2 exams here will be the PO and the clerical.
And the pattern of the exam or roughly the content of the exam, is it similar?
Yes, the level of difficulty of the PO would be slightly above the clerical exams. But otherwise, the syllabus as such for all these exams is pretty much the same, at least for PO and clerical. For SO, it's slightly different. So we need to first understand the structure for each of them, right? For PO, you have, and as well as clerical, you have something called as a prelims, right? A prelims is basically a multiple choice test, MCQ test, 100 questions, right, to be done in 1 hour, and it's a computer-based test. Right, so you need to take it in a computer center. If you clear the prelims, you go to another test which is called as the mains, and that happens within 1 month after the prelims, right? And that's again an MCQ test. The difference being that while the prelim only focuses on math, English, and reasoning, the mains will also have computers and general awareness apart from the 3 areas, which is math, English, reasoning. And then you have the interview for the PO. You don't have an interview for the clerical exams. In SO, the specialist officer exam, the pattern is probably going to change this year. We've not yet got the confirmation from IBPS. Till last year, you had only 1 exam for SO, which had everything in it. SO is basically specialist officer meant for specialized jobs. So not every graduate is eligible to write this. You need to have a specialized degree or you need to have a work experience for specialized positions that bank needs.
And what do you mean specialized degree?
So it could be an MBA, or it could be an MCA, or it could be 2 to 3 years of work experience in the sales and marketing. These are people who are eligible to write SO for specialized jobs like marketing or IT or HR, right? Now this year we believe that instead of 1 exam, they will have 2 exams. One will be the prelims, which is similar to the PO or the clerical. The second stage would be again MCQ, but it will be on the area which they are applying for. So if I'm applying for an IT job, it will be an MCQ on IT or maybe marketing, very specialized to that. SO is slightly different from the rest, but if you look at PO and clerical, pretty much the same syllabus. Level of difficulty, you would expect PO to be slightly higher.
So let's look at the number of vacancies that are available. Before we come down to each one of these exams, let's look at the banks and the vacancies that are available when people clear this exam.
It's kind of difficult to put a number to it because it just varies every year. The number of vacancies will never be the same every year. Depends on the requirements of each bank. Tentatively, we expect POs to be anywhere between 7,000 to 10,000. That's the number that generally happens for the probationary officer and IBPS. And for the clerical, it could be a lot more. It will be about 3 times. So we are looking at something like 20 to 30,000 vacancies that will come for the clerical positions.
And are there other exams that people can take for other than banking industry that resemble this exam? So why I'm asking you this question is once they prepare and when we guide them on this and they prepare along these lines, what are all the various openings that could open out for them?
Well, that's a good question because based on the same IBPS syllabus. In fact, IBPS itself as a body conducts various exams which are similar to the bank exam. For example, if you look at all the insurance companies, whether it is New India Assurance, whether it's Oriental Insurance, LIC, GIC, these are all conducted by IBPS and they are very similar to the bank and the clerical exams. So if you're prepared for the IBPS PO, you can take all the insurance exams that are conducted by IBPS. You can also take some of the exams conducted by the private, in the private sector. So you have ICICI Bank, Axis Bank. Now they outsource their entire recruitment process to private entities like Manipal or MET, right? And they conduct the exams which are very similar to the exams conducted by IBPS. So if you're prepared for the IBPS, it automatically prepares you for all the private sector. It prepares you for some of the cooperative banks. Some of the cooperative banks have their own exams. So even that is taken care of, and the insurance companies.
Wow.
Apart from that, there is SBI, which is one of the most sought after. SBI is India's largest public sector bank. It doesn't come under IBPS like all the other banks. They prefer to have their own exam. And the SBI is probably the most sought after job in the banking industry after RBI. The IBPS will also to a certain extent prepare you for SBI, although I would probably presume that SBI will be a little more competitive since it's just one exam and most sought after. It will be a little more competitive than IBPS, but the syllabus is again the same.
Okay, so once we go through this interview, you've got a whole lot of jobs opening up for you.
Yeah.
So let's talk about eligibility right now.
Sure. So the eligibility for IBPS is you need to be a minimum age of 20 and you can take it till the time you're 30. You need to be in your final year of graduation.
Okay.
So if you're 20, typically you would be in your final year of graduation. But normally the exams need to be taken after you complete your graduation exams. So if you finish your graduation by March, April, these exams typically come in the month of October, so you can take it after your graduation is over. Till you're 30, there is a relaxation of 3 years for the OBC, 5 years for SC and ST, and 10 years for the physically disadvantaged. There is no criteria on the percentage marks.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Okay, you just need to pass.
You need to be a graduate.
So Prasan, tell me these exciting number of jobs that are available. What are roughly the pay scales, just for people to have an expectation?
Sure. So the pay scale for a clerical level is anything between 20,000 to 24,000. Okay. That's the rough, because you need to understand that the pay scale will also depend on where you are placed in India. So pay scale of Mumbai would be slightly bigger than the pay scale which is there in, let's say, a small town. And for a PO, it will be anything between 40 to 45,000. But a PO is also eligible for HRA. So they do get housing accommodation, which is about 15,000 per month. So you can say roughly it's about 60,000 per month as a starting salary for PO, if I include all the perks that he gets.
Yeah, so we have interesting number of jobs. We have a very exciting package.
It's a very good package with a very strong job security.
Yes.
If you are in a public sector bank, job security is probably one of the biggest advantages that you have.
Yeah. Okay, so let's talk about the exam itself.
Sure.
Yeah, so how many sections does it have?
So again, as I said, there are two parts to the exam. One is the prelims, which you need to clear to be eligible for the mains. Now the prelims itself has got 3 sections. It's a 100-mark paper with 100 questions. You have 30 questions in English, 35 each in math and reasoning. Now the important thing is to clear the cutoff of each of the sections.
Okay.
Right?
The
So
prelims also.
in the prelims as well. So you need to have an overall cutoff, which could be, let's say, if I go with the past trends, out of 100, somewhere between 40 to 50. And then you also need to ensure that it's not completely skewed. So you can't score a 25, 25 and a 0. So you need to be scoring at least somewhere close to a double-digit score in each of the 3 sections, and then a couple of sections where you kind of maximize to reach the overall cutoff.
Yeah, the mains?
So once you clear this, within 1 month, you have to appear for the mains. The mains, IBPS mains is 200 marks, right? And the time duration is a little more than 2 hours. It's 2 hours, 20 minutes. And you have 50 marks of math, 50 marks of reasoning. So that makes it 100. 40 is English and 40 is GK and 20 marks is computers, right? Now, again, there are section-wise cutoff. So you need to clear every section, and there's overall cutoff. So again, the overall cutoffs will vary. Last year, for example, the mains was quite tough. So you could be talking about a cutoff which is just about in the 70s or the 80s. Out of 200. And then there is the interview for the PO, which is of 100 marks. Now, in the final cumulative sum, they do not consider prelims. Prelims is only an eligibility to enter the mains. The final grading would be based on the mains and the interview. And then there is a weighted average. It's not like it's a cumulative score. They give more weightage to the written exam. It's still a weighted average, but the interview also becomes important.
Right. Now let's look at each one of the 5 sections.
Sure.
And how should they prepare for it, and what sort of questions can they expect?
So let's start with the prelims. See, the entire banking exams are very speed-based exams. They are not so much which test your intelligence. You need to just work hard. It's a lot of practice. So math, for example, is not going to be very high-level math. They're going to test you on areas like numbers, basic board mass, right? Which we did in standard 5-6, multiplication, division, brackets, addition, subtraction. Then arithmetic is the biggest chunk. So you have areas like profit and loss, percentages, simple interest, compound interest, ratios, time, speed and distance. So that's your syllabus. There will be a couple of areas of, let's say, algebra, like quadratic equations, but that's about it. And you have some questions on data interpretation. So that's your syllabus for math, right?
Is this like a 10th standard syllabus?
It is more than a 10th. It's like a 7th, 8th, 9th kind of a math. You don't have trigonometry in bank exams, right? You don't have a lot of geometry in bank exams. You don't have higher level math, no differentiation, no calculus, absolutely. But you have a lot of calculations. So your tables and squares have to be in place.
And there's no use of calculators.
Yeah, there's no use of calculator. Something which a lot of, let's say, commerce students are used to for 3 years of their graduation. Now they are not allowed to use that. So you have to go back to your rudimentary tables and squares and shortcuts.
Clearly they don't need to do mathematics in their graduation.
No, they don't.
They don't necessarily need to do mathematics in their 11th and 12th.
No, absolutely. There's no correlation between what math is there in 11th, 12th with the bank math. This is absolutely elementary. As I said, it's a lot of hard work, practice, practice and practice. There's nothing else. English is going to be a combination of reading comprehension, which is passages and questions based on that, a little bit of grammar, para-jumbled. So they give you a paragraph, they will jumble up the lines or the sentences. You need to rearrange them. And then they have grammar and vocab.
And how do they prepare for these?
So a lot of students who are not very comfortable with reading a lot of English, they need to start reading a lot. Because reading comprehension would require them to have a lot of speed when reading. So the first thing I would advise students is please pick up a newspaper, if not books, at least an English newspaper that comes to your house every day. And I think English is not something which you can improve in a 15-day period. You need to work on it at least for a 6 month to 1 year period. So start early. As far as English is concerned, for vocab, I would suggest A, please read newspapers. B, it's important to improve your vocab by making flashcards. Write down words, write down their meanings, and if possible, try to make sentences you can relate to. Right? So if I say, for example, I want to understand the word jumpy, I think it's important to make a sentence that you can relate to. For example, I was extremely jumpy before bungee jumping. So that kind of the context tells me the meaning of, I'll remember it because of the context. There are books available. A great book would be a Norman Lewis book, Word Power Made Easy, which is a very good book to improve your vocab. But it's a long-term game. You have to spend at least 5 to 6 months working on it. There are word lists available in the market which you can go and start going through. But it's going to be a game of discipline. And yeah, the challenge for a lot of us Indians is if you don't speak in English, whatever words you have learned, you're not able to use them. So if you can actually have a platform where those words are either taught to someone else or you can use them in your everyday language, nothing like it.
Or that will form study groups.
Absolutely. If you have a study group and then you kind of teach that 10-15 words you learned yesterday to your friend and then he teaches you another 10 words, that can be a great way of memorizing new words. So the reasoning section is interesting because this is one section which almost every student enjoys the most. Reasoning, unlike a lot of people might think it's puzzles, but these are not arbit puzzles. These are based on a very clear-cut defined syllabus, right? So you have questions based on what's the next number in the series or the missing number in the series. You will have questions based on family trees, right? So they'll just give you a relationship which is completely interlinked, looking at a girl, a boy said her father's, is my son, how are we related to each other? So it will be a little convoluted and you'll have to make the tree very quickly, right? Or it could be directions where you have A going in the northeast direction and then taking a few right turns and left turns and then finally which direction is he facing, right? Or what is the distance covered from the starting point. Coding, decoding, which is very common, right? They'll give you a code of lion and ask you the code of tiger. So you need to understand how that code of lion has been made. So for example, if I say the code of lion is MKRR, then L is becoming M, which is +1, and then I is becoming K, which is +2, and the same thing you'll have to do for tiger. The T will become +1 and I will become +2. So all these things have a set of rules around them. If you're preparing for these exams, it's very important for you to know these rules, right? There are set of books that will give you those rules, but the best students will always make their own rules. They will always try to kind of come up with something that works for them. And that's again going to happen with practice. To me, it's about knowing the rules, step one, but after that, it's going to be practice. Because knowing the rules is the easy part. The difficult part is to kind of make sure that you're working on those rules again and again and again so that when you look at the sum, you know exactly what needs to be done. It's all about, is the question familiar to you, right? If the question is familiar to you, you're going to solve it in under 40 seconds. Finally, if you ask me reasoning, it's one section where it's a level playing field, but you have to really put a lot of hard work. The challenge in reasoning is never accuracy. Accuracy is a given because it's very objective. 2 + 2 will be 4. It's speed. If you're doing a question in, let's say, 50 seconds, you say that, okay, next time, how can I do it in 40? And that's where your little own rules will help. When you know that this is how it works for me.
And are there any books that you can recommend which they can easily pick up, at least as a starting point?
So, as a standard book, we have a book called R.S. Agarwal. Or else, what you can do is you can pick up a lot of X papers, the previous, let's say 10-year papers, which are again available in the market, and you can practice from there. Because what happens is a lot of these books available in the market are very generic books. These are not specific to one exam. But when you pick up the previous 10 papers, you know exactly the kind of problems that will come for that particular exam. So you can start working on those specific problems, right? There's one thing that I would want every student to know who is aspiring for these exams. I'll give you an example of the movie Dangal. And Amir Khan starts preparing the daughters for the wrestling matches in a akhada, which is the sand. Eventually, he says that, look, the medals will be won on the mat. In a bank exam, you can bring all the books from wherever you want, but that is still the akhada. Finally, you're going to win the medal on the computer. And it's a completely different ball game. When you go on a computer and you realize that there's a timer there, which is going to bring down the time every second, it puts a tremendous pressure on you, and it's a very different ball game. To give you a simple example, suppose I'm doing a reading comprehension passage. On a paper, I can just underline the important words. I can go from the first word to the last word with a flicker of my eye. But on a computer screen, I have to scroll down, right? I can't underline important stuff. So it's a very different ball game. A board mass problem, on a paper, you can start solving there itself. Whereas it's on a screen, you'll have to copy it on your paper, on the rough paper, and start solving it. So my suggestion to a lot of students would be that, look, you can practice as much as you want on the paper, but eventually you will have to practice 10x of that on the computer.
Very useful.
Yeah.
Because that at that moment anyway, the anxiety levels.
Absolutely. See, we are, as an education system, a lot of kids are not used to working or taking tests on the computer. So we are very comfortable taking or studying from the books. You need to understand, for example, that how much time are you going to spend on a particular area to clear the cutoff. And when you do it again and again and again, you tend to get a feeling of, okay, I'm behind my schedule, I'm ahead of my schedule. You get that understanding. But if you have not done that, it is the first time you're sitting on a computer, you don't know at any point of time, am I ahead or behind? You're just solving it. And invariably you will clear one section, but you will leave the other section. Maybe you could lose, let's say, cut off by 1 mark or 2 marks. And that is not a function of whether you are good enough. It's a function of whether you timed the section well.
Yeah, because you can't see the entire booklet. You can't.
Absolutely.
And also, I know if I left a question, I would probably circle it.
Yeah. So there will be so many things that you will realize that the online test is going to make you do, which a paper-based doesn't.
So thanks for watching part 1 of how to crack the IBPS exam. Continue to watch part 2 of this series because out there we're going to talk primarily about the interview, the types of questions you're going to get asked, what should you answer, how should you dress, etc. Lots of information there waiting for you. And we're also going to finish the last 2 sections of preparation, general knowledge and computer awareness before we get to interview. So stay tuned for part 2. And if you like this one, you have any comments or questions, you want clarifications from Prasan or from me, put everything down in the comment section and press that subscribe button, and happy watching.